9 grand am.
Well, we have a lot going on around the country. Certainly a cool front coming through with strong thunderstorms and the remnants of a tropical depression giving a lot of heavy rain to the south. We'll take a look at all of this, starting with the tropical update. And of course, sticking out like a sore thumb, we have had a pretty busy season all of a sudden now. After a very slow season, what with the El Nino we had last year in 1997, El Nino has gone away pretty much, and 1998 has been a lot busier. And this, the strongest storm we've seen maybe since Hurricane Andrew, that is George coming up on the West Indies right now, and there's still another tropical depression out to sea. Let's take a look at the latest on George, and this is actually some good news. The max winds have gone down to 135 miles an hour. It was borderline Category 4 going on 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Now it's just a lower of the echelon of Category 4, which is still a devastating hurricane. It could be a lot worse, but it's a very strong hurricane. It's going through some changes, and it could even begin to pick up strength again by the time it makes landfall on some of the islands, moving west to 16 miles an hour. Pressure now, as relayed by reconnaissance aircraft, at 956 millibars. It was 939 millibars and 150 miles an hour at the latest advisory, the last advisory. So we've seen a temporary, if anything, at least a temporary weakening. We have hurricane warnings throughout the islands from Dominica to Puerto Rico, and watches from St. Lucia to Martinique further down toward the French islands, and also tropical storm warnings from Martinique to St. Lucia. So, hurricane watch, tropical storm warnings from Martinique to St. Lucia. Still showing a very good signature on radar, or on the satellite photograph. This is Guadeloupe, the island that's shaped like a butterfly, and then Martinique, the French islands, right about here. It looks like it's headed in that direction. Then we get into Antigua, Montserrat, and into the British and U.S. Virgin Islands here. So somewhere through the northern French West Indies right now, looks like the center of it is heading. The eye has gotten a little fuzzy, as we showed you. The wind speeds have dropped a little bit, but there seems to be what we call a central dense overcast trying to wrap around the eye again. So it could be just going through a cycle and then pick up energy once again. Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe. It looks like our storm right now, our hurricane, is headed in this direction generally. These islands from Barbuda, Antigua down to Dominica and Martinique look like they'll be either in or very close to the eye wall, certainly within about 50 or 100 miles of the center. So you are certain to have hurricane conditions, and in some cases severe hurricane conditions. Hurricane winds blowing out over 100 miles to the north, 150 or more, and close to 100 to the south, and Category 3 conditions, intense hurricane conditions on the Saffir-Simpson scale right near the center. As we go to a Puerto Rico radar, we can also already see some bands of rain moving through from the British toward the U.S. Virgin Islands, some locally heavy rain. You folks need to make all final preparations now in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and certainly further east as our storm bears down on you very rapidly. Conditions are going to deteriorate. It's a serious hurricane situation. Further out in the Atlantic, we have Tropical Depression 9 just getting started, kind of where George did a while ago. As we zoom in on that, we can see a sort of a northward drift to it, and not that well organized. There is some hope that it will curve northward and not be a problem. Let's hope that happens. More on George after your local forecast.
While one tropical system is winding down, Hurricane George isn't losing steam as it heads our way. We'll update the tropical situation on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This season, bring a familiar color into your garden. The Fiskars Power Gear Pruner, unlike any pruner you've ever seen. A revolutionary new gear design dramatically reduces cutting effort through a rotating handle that evenly distributes the cutting force to a precision, stay-sharp blade. The Power Gear Pruner, guaranteed for life. Fiskars, a familiar name, geared for the garden.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Deerdorf. Where would you go for a home equity loan? Let's ask.
Well, banks have the best rates.
But banks only lend money when you don't need it.
Advanta National Bank is different. They lend money to people when they need it.
Right. With my credit?
They made their first loans 45 years ago to teachers who had trouble borrowing. They helped out when others wouldn't.
This is a bank, right?
With customers who get the flexibility only a national bank can offer, right over the phone.
Got to move all your accounts there.
Nope, just call Advanta. One of their loan specialists will show you how to use the equity.
For the safety of our whole family.
It's not like the other years, so it's going to be tough, I guess.
Preparations are underway in Puerto Rico as Hurricane George
On Storm Watch tonight, some powerful thunderstorms working through Chicago, southwestern Michigan. We have many warnings out, and we've had some heavy rain, too, in north central Nebraska and also north central Kansas. So we have a lot to talk about in the States, and, of course, the tropics. Very busy tonight with George. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have for you as we start off with the big picture. We'll put this into motion. You can see George, and for the better part of these frames, as this goes into motion, we have some good news to report to you about George. Some good news, mind you, that we've really not seen an eye all day with this. It kind of disappeared this morning, and George has also come up quite a bit from its earlier 939 millibars. The newest reconnaissance air report is 957. And I also noticed on that report that they're talking about lightning, frequent lightning of the southeast quad. And that is definitely something that you do not see in a hurricane that's deepening or developing rapidly. So this thing's gotten a shot of dry air from the south, and it's actually been a benefit because we've seen winds go from 150 down to 130. So it's just below Cat 4 right now with the wind field. Currently 95 miles east of Guadalupe, and believe it or not, Guadalupe only has winds out of the northwest at 16 knots, which is just unbelievable for the proximity and the size of this thing. But it has weakened a little bit, and that is definitely very, very good news as it continues to pull on off toward the west, though it is still a major hurricane and a bona fide threat. Here are the warnings that we have, which extend from just north of Martinique all the way around, including the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Now the watches are posted for the western or the eastern end of the Dominican Republic. So this is something that you may have to watch in time. Forecast track takes it right over Puerto Rico, and that's not good news. Tropical storm advisories extend from Martinique down to St. Lucia, and tropical storm winds are extending out and probably affecting some of the islands, but the obs that I'm seeing again around Guadalupe are very, very light at this time. But that just means that you're going to go downhill in a hurry. You're not even too far from the hurricane winds. Let me show you the radar out of Puerto Rico. Here are the effects now. Some of the outer bands are moving through with some squally weather, some showers and some thunderstorms, but that's it. We still got a long way to go, and tomorrow will be your day that you'll deal with this thing. Let's go ahead and look at the hurricane once again. Here it is, moving west. A new tropical depression to the east of that. This is number 9. It is forecast to become a hurricane, and continue on its northwest track.
Hurricane George is shaping up as a very powerful storm. We'll have up-to-the-minute details on where George is and where it's headed, plus your weather just ahead on Weather Center.
Ever notice how you never have enough time? Well, Sprint's putting time on your side, and now some of it's free.
Time is on my side. Yes, it is.
Call for Sprint Sense anytime right now, and you'll get that great dime-a-minute rate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Plus up to 30 minutes of free calling each month, every month, for as long as you're a Sprint customer. So go ahead and call Sprint now. Then you can feel free to call anyone you want, as long as you want. You'll enjoy Sprint's advanced technology and the most reliable network in America. That great dime-a-minute rate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now, just for staying with Sprint, you'll get up to 30 minutes of free calling each month. But you've got to call Sprint now, because even though your free calling could go on for a long time, this offer won't. Put time on your side.
But much of our attention tonight certainly focused into the Caribbean, the Leeward Islands, where we're dealing with Hurricane George. Let's look now at what is happening in this area as we begin our tropical update. And here's the big picture, and what we've got out there is, well, we finally got rid of Tropical Storm Hermine in terms of a tropical storm. It's gone. Just a little low-pressure center working its way up into the southeast. But certainly here, this right here is our main area of concern as we go into the overnight hours here on Sunday night into Monday, especially for residents of the northern Leeward Islands. Hurricane George, as of 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, centered 85 miles east-southeast of Antigua in the Leeward Islands. Top winds have been coming down over the last several hours. That is some excellent news. Top winds now put at 125 miles an hour by the National Hurricane Center. Still moving just north of due west at about 16 miles an hour. Central pressure has risen quite a bit here over the last hours also, now up to 963 millibars. Now, one thing you notice immediately looking at this is you're saying, where is the eye? Remember last night there was a picture-perfect circular eye in the middle of the storm? We can't see the eye here. And talking with our hurricane expert John Hope, saying it's very unusual in a Category 3 hurricane, as George is, to not see an eye. But just because the eye is not visible does not mean this isn't a dangerous storm. It is a very dangerous storm with winds over 120 miles an hour. And we do have hurricane warnings posted from the National Hurricane Center. Warnings in effect from Dominica to Puerto Rico. Watches from St. Lucia to Martinique and in the Dominican Republic. This system is getting ready to come on shore. Winds are now gusting above tropical storm force at Guadeloupe, and things are only going to deteriorate further as we go through time. Tropical storm warnings in effect from Martinique down to St. Lucia on the southern side of the system. However, right now it looks like this thing is going to be taking a course right on through the northern Leeward Islands here over the next 12 hours. Puerto Rico residents, as we look at the radar here, you can see just a few showers wandering through right now. Not too much in the way of precipitation. The radar does not extend all the way down here in toward the area of Guadeloupe, but this island shaped somewhat like a butterfly. That is Guadeloupe, and the storm now not too far offshore to the east of Guadeloupe. And the wind field looking like this, you can see already the tropical storm force winds onshore into the islands here of the northern leewards, and the hurricane force winds not all that far offshore. So a very dangerous system. We'll be talking more about Hurricane George here at the top of the hour with John Hope, our hurricane expert, as this system continues to work its way into the northern Leeward Islands. That's not the only system we're talking about, though. We have also Tropical Depression 9 as of 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, centered 570 miles west of the Cape Verde Islands, moving west at 12 miles an hour with top winds of 35 miles an hour. Here's a look at that system right here. You can see it does have some convection with it, and it will be gaining strength, it looks like, but on present course it's looking like it may be taking a more northerly course than George did, and which hopefully will keep it out over the open waters of the Atlantic and away from any problems on land. We'll be talking more about the tropics in just about 5 minutes, but we come back now into the United States where we see a couple of problems: cold front and moisture. We started off with moisture, wet weather, lots of rain here into Florida and into southern Georgia as also. Very wet weather, very wet night tonight, places like Ocala, heading down in toward Orlando and up in toward Tallahassee. So please be careful and watch out on low-lying areas in case we see any low-lying flooding. Along our front, we're also seeing the potential for some stronger thunderstorms as cool air blasting down out of Canada is pushing into warmer and more humid air on the southern side of the front. Thunderstorms now seem to be diminishing somewhat across southern Michigan, but as we head into Kansas, look at these storms here east of Topeka, or rather west of Topeka, Manhattan, Kansas, getting a fairly strong storm right now. And as we head back into Michigan, you can see some thunderstorms working their way toward Detroit and a pretty nasty storm not too far from Fort Wayne. Stay tuned for more on the tropics coming up next.
Hurricane George is proving to be a force to be reckoned with as this strong storm bears down on the Leeward Islands. The very latest, plus your weather ahead on Weather Center.
This program was sponsored by the Home Depot.
As a customer, you're so important to us that you should have the best price all the time rather than just sometimes when other stores...
George centered at 16.9 north, 61.4 west. That puts the center 30 miles east-southeast of Antigua. The maximum sustained wind...
2 days worth of images, and we see at the start, right in here, it gets more intense. There's the eye right in the middle of the clouds yesterday. And then as we went through the day today, coming up right about there, we see the eye disappear from the satellite imagery, and even the hurricane hunters could not find it a little bit earlier today, although they could this evening. If we zoom in a little bit and also colorize the clouds, which we can do right here, we see the deeper clouds right in here that we've colorized. We also see some of this flow, these clouds right in here, impinging on the northwest side of the storm. That may be one of the factors which is causing it to be less intense than it otherwise would. But nonetheless, we have the center of circulation right about in here, very close to Antigua, embedded in these squalls, so undoubtedly it's going to be a...
Man's basic desire is to be free.
He will break loose his chains. He will decimate his enemies.
From director Steven Spielberg, a shattering drama comes into your home on pay-per-view. Morgan Freeman, Anthony Hopkins, Jaimin Hansu, and Matthew McConaughey. Sheer power. Amistad. One of the most powerful films of the year. Easy to order at home on pay-per-view.
I think that people have a fascination with the weather, just like we do. And they want to get our insight into why the weather is doing what it's doing. We even show pictures.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
It's Storm Watch time at the Weather Channel. I'm Paul Emick. Let's begin the Storm Watch. That includes a look at some strong and stormy conditions across the contiguous 48, including parts of Kansas and heading toward Kansas City. We'll begin our look with the tropical update. Wow, a lot to talk about here, including Hurricane George, which is located right there. Not too hard to miss that. It's on its movement here, currently the west-northwest. We'll look. Hurricane George, the big story, 30 miles east-southeast of Antigua, the Leeward Islands, 115-mile-per-hour sustained winds. It's moving west at 16 miles per hour, and the pressure at 28.53 inches of mercury. That's 966 millibars. And if you have been plodding along, you know that's increased in the last 24 hours. The pressure has actually risen inside of George, 25 millibars in 24 hours. You can see where it's classified. You can also see where it lies currently. A lot of speculation as to what's happened, but it has actually kind of decreased a bit in its intensity. There is some theoretical notion that maybe that some of the outflow has been restricted. It's been encountering a bit of shear or a bit of a problem, and that's why it may have been weakening a bit. Additionally, it could move on to a spot where it may intensify, so you can't expect fluctuation with tropical systems, and this is still a powerful hurricane. I mean, it may have come down a little bit, but still 115-mile-per-hour sustained winds with incredible winds. And gusts still a possibility as this thing moves in toward the leewards, where we're dealing with many problems tonight. Even around Desarad, we've dealt with some winds of 88 miles per hour, so already winds near there in the leewards. And the Desarad around 88 miles per hour, so well into hurricane strength. Again, it has decreased a bit. Again, it may be related to a bit of shear it may have encountered, but it is not out of the question that fluctuations will continue, but it could easily strengthen again. It's not out of the question that it may go back up. Plus, it's still a Category 3 hurricane. Don't worry so much about its current winds. Just remember, it's a powerful hurricane that means a lot of devastation to people and property is a possibility. We'll keep you on top of this. Remember, hurricane warnings mean within 24 hours you can expect hurricane conditions, including winds, incredible winds, and incredible rains. Even some 5 to 10 inch amounts will not be uncommon at all. Warnings from Dominica to Puerto Rico, even hurricane watches, Martinique, St. Lucia, and also the Dominican Republic, as you see there in the orange shaded areas. Tropical storm warnings for the tropical storm force winds extend out, include Martinique and St. Lucia as well. There's an indication of the tropical storm force winds there in the yellow. The more powerful hurricane winds indicated closer to the center of circulation, which is right about in that region, kind of the strongest, stormiest quadrant of the storm now, kind of in the northwestern quadrant. As if this weren't enough, we have another system. This is Tropical Storm Ivan on the move. Left the Cape Verde and became classified some time ago. Watching another wave exiting as well. Here's a look at the weather across the contiguous 48. What's left of Hermine continues to dump a lot of rain across the southeast. Still stormy across the plains. We'll talk more of this and have an examination of Hurricane George and Weather Center next.
The Leeward Islands are bracing for the full impact of Hurricane George at this hour. We'll have the very latest on this intense storm on Weather Center after your local forecast.
Planning a special event? You'll be amazed at all the things you can rent. And the money you'll save over buying them. Renting. It's the smart way to get things done.
Check your yellow pages for information on ARA members.
The average workday lasts longer than a few hours, but the average pain reliever may work a few hours, then quit. Aleve works all day with just 2 pills. It would take 8 Tylenol to do that. 2 pills, all-day relief, works for me.
So where you taking her tonight? Not that French place, I hope.